Our food supply, the foundation of our health and well-being, is facing an insidious threat: the pervasive use of harmful chemicals in agriculture. These chemicals are not just limited to the fields, but infiltrate every stage of food production. From the fields where our crops grow to the factories where they are processed, a cocktail of pesticides, herbicides, and synthetic fertilizers is contaminating our food chain. This contamination is not always visible, but its effects are profound and far-reaching. This chemical onslaught has far-reaching consequences, impacting not only the environment but also the very fabric of our health, disrupting ecosystems and the natural balance of our surroundings, disrupting our hormones, triggering inflammation, and fueling a surge in chronic diseases. The long-term exposure to these chemicals can lead to serious health issues, including cancer, neurological disorders, and reproductive problems. The modern agricultural system, driven by the pursuit of profit and efficiency, has embraced chemical-intensive practices that prioritize yield over safety. This relentless focus on productivity has overshadowed the importance of health and environmental sustainability. Pesticides, designed to kill pests, leave behind residues that linger on our produce, making their way into our bodies. These residues are often invisible to the naked eye, but their presence is undeniable and concerning. Herbicides, intended to eradicate weeds, contaminate the soil and water, ultimately ending up in our food. The contamination of water sources is particularly alarming, as it affects not just the immediate area, but can spread far and wide. These chemicals, often touted as safe within permissible limits, accumulate in our bodies over time, creating a toxic burden with potentially devastating consequences. The cumulative effect of these chemicals can lead to a range of health issues that are difficult to trace back to a single source. The widespread adoption of chemical fertilizers, while boosting crop yields in the short term, depletes the soil of essential nutrients, leading to nutrient-deficient produce. This depletion of soil health is a critical issue that affects the quality of the food we consume. This, in turn, contributes to a vicious cycle of malnutrition, where we consume more food but receive fewer nutrients, leaving us hungry and vulnerable to disease. The lack of essential nutrients in our diet can lead to a host of health problems, including weakened immune systems and developmental issues in children. The food industry's reliance on these chemical inputs has created a system that prioritizes quantity over quality, jeopardizing our health and the integrity of our food system. This focus on mass production has led to a decline in the nutritional value of our food. The consequences of this chemical dependence extend beyond our individual health, impacting the environment and future generations. The environmental damage caused by these chemicals is extensive and long-lasting. Pesticides and herbicides pollute our waterways, harming aquatic life and threatening the delicate balance of ecosystems. The death of fish and other aquatic organisms is a stark reminder of the impact of these chemicals on our environment. The overuse of chemical fertilizers contributes to greenhouse gas emissions, exacerbating climate change and its devastating effects. The release of these gases into the atmosphere accelerates global warming and its associated impacts. The time has come to question the true cost of our chemically dependent food system and demand a shift towards sustainable, health-promoting practices. By supporting organic and sustainable farming methods, we can protect our health, preserve the environment, and ensure a better future for generations to come. Our endocrine system, a complex network of glands that produce and regulate hormones, plays a critical role in maintaining our overall health and well-being. This intricate system involves various glands, such as the thyroid, adrenal, and pituitary glands, each contributing to the delicate balance of hormones in our bodies. Hormones act as chemical messengers, influencing a wide range of bodily functions, from growth and development to metabolism and reproduction. They travel through the bloodstream, binding to specific receptors on cells to trigger vital processes that keep our bodies functioning optimally. However, this delicate hormonal balance is increasingly under threat from exposure to endocrine-disrupting chemicals, many of which are found in the pesticides used in agriculture. These chemicals can infiltrate our food supply and environment, posing a significant risk to our health. Pesticides, designed to target pests' nervous and reproductive systems, can have unintended consequences on human health, particularly on our endocrine system. The very mechanisms that make them effective against pests can also disrupt human hormonal functions. These chemicals can mimic or block the action of hormones, interfering with their normal signaling pathways and disrupting the delicate hormonal balance within our bodies. This interference can lead to a cascade of health issues as the body struggles to maintain equilibrium. This disruption can manifest in a range of health problems, from reproductive issues and developmental disorders to metabolic diseases and certain types of cancer. The impact on health can be profound and far-reaching, affecting individuals across all stages of life. Children, with their developing bodies and immature detoxification systems, are particularly vulnerable to the adverse effects of pesticide exposure. Their growing organs and systems are more susceptible to damage, which can have long-term consequences on their health and development. Studies have linked early life exposure to pesticides to a range of developmental problems, including ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, and impaired cognitive function. These findings highlight the critical need to protect children from harmful chemical exposures during their formative years. The long-term consequences of this widespread exposure to EDCs are still being uncovered, but the evidence suggests a profound impact on the health of current and future generations. Ongoing research continues to reveal the extent of these effects, emphasizing the importance of addressing this issue. The pervasive presence of pesticides in our food supply poses a significant threat to our hormonal health and well-being. It is crucial to be aware of the potential risks associated with consuming conventionally grown produce. Reducing our exposure to these harmful chemicals is crucial for protecting our health and ensuring the well-being of future generations. Simple steps such as choosing organic produce and supporting local farmers who use sustainable practices can make a significant difference. This requires a multi-pronged approach, including advocating for stricter regulations on pesticide use, supporting organic and sustainable farming practices, and making informed choices about the food we consume. By taking these actions, we can help safeguard our health and the health of our planet. Antibiotics, once hailed as miracle drugs for their ability to combat bacterial infections, are now facing a grave threat: antibiotic resistance. This resistance is not just a future concern, it is a present-day reality that is escalating at an alarming rate. This phenomenon, where bacteria evolve to become resistant to the effects of antibiotics, is driven by the overuse and misuse of these life-saving drugs, particularly in the agricultural industry. The agricultural sector has become a significant contributor to this crisis, with antibiotics being used not just for treating sick animals, but also as a preventive measure and growth promoter. The rampant use of antibiotics in livestock and poultry production is creating a breeding ground for drug-resistant bacteria, posing a significant threat to human health. These factory farms, with their crowded and often unsanitary conditions, are perfect environments for bacteria to thrive and evolve. In the United States, the majority of antibiotics sold are not for human use but are routinely administered to livestock and poultry, often not to treat infections, but to promote growth and prevent disease in crowded and unsanitary conditions. This practice is not only prevalent in the US, but is also a common practice in many other countries around the world. This widespread non-therapeutic use of antibiotics creates a selective pressure that favors the survival and proliferation of drug-resistant bacteria. These bacteria can then multiply and spread, making it increasingly difficult to control infections. These resistant bacteria can then spread from animals to humans through contaminated food, water, and the environment. The journey of these bacteria from farm to table is a complex one, involving multiple pathways that can affect a wide range of people. The consequences of antibiotic resistance are dire. Infections that were once easily treatable with antibiotics are now becoming more difficult to manage. Infections caused by drug-resistant bacteria are more difficult and expensive to treat, leading to longer hospital stays, higher healthcare costs, and increased mortality rates. The financial burden on healthcare systems is immense, and the human cost is even greater. The World Health Organization has identified antibiotic resistance as one of the biggest threats to global health, food security, and development. This issue transcends borders and requires a coordinated global response. The rise of superbugs, bacteria resistant to multiple antibiotics, further underscores the urgency of addressing this growing crisis. These superbugs are a testament to the adaptability of bacteria and the challenges we face in combating them. Tackling antibiotic resistance requires a multifaceted approach, including reducing the unnecessary use of antibiotics in agriculture, developing new antibiotics and alternative therapies, and improving sanitation and infection control practices. Collaboration between governments, healthcare providers, and the agricultural industry is essential. Consumers can play a role by choosing meat and poultry raised without antibiotics, supporting policies that restrict antibiotic use in agriculture, and practicing good hygiene to prevent the spread of infections. By making informed choices, we can all contribute to the fight against antibiotic resistance and help safeguard the effectiveness of these vital drugs for future generations. The agencies tasked with protecting our food supply and safeguarding public health, such as the Food and Drug Administration and the Environmental Protection Agency, are often influenced by the very industries they are supposed to regulate. This phenomenon, known as regulatory capture, occurs when regulatory agencies become beholden to the interests of powerful industries, prioritizing corporate profits over the health and well-being of the public. The revolving door between regulatory agencies and the industries they oversee exacerbates this problem. Scientists and officials who once worked for regulatory agencies often move on to lucrative positions within the food and pharmaceutical industries, creating conflicts of interest and undermining public trust. This cozy relationship between regulators and the regulated creates a system where industry influence can shape regulations, weaken enforcement, and stifle scientific inquiry that threatens corporate profits. The influence of big food and pharmaceutical companies on research and scientific discourse further complicates matters. Industry-funded studies often produce favorable results for the sponsor's products, while independent research that raises concerns about safety or efficacy may face suppression, discrediting, or lack of funding. This creates a biased body of evidence that can mislead policymakers and the public, hindering efforts to implement effective public health protections. Addressing regulatory capture requires systemic changes to ensure the independence and integrity of regulatory agencies. This includes strengthening conflict of interest rules, increasing transparency and public participation in the regulatory process, and providing adequate funding for independent research and monitoring. We must demand that our regulatory agencies prioritize public health over corporate profits and hold them accountable for protecting our food supply and our health.